So hi, my name is Heather, for those of you who don't know me. And I am with YogaX, which is a special initiative program out of the Department of Psychiatry at Stanford. And so what we've been doing while we've all been sheltering in place and staying home is offering free yoga classes. Hi, honey. This is my very, very vocal cat. I'd like to think that his meows are like him cheering us on, so maybe we can reframe that as opposed to him yelling at me for giving him a second serving of wet food. So with today, I'm going to be offering some yoga shapes and postures, and please feel free to do whatever feels like good in your body or feels like you can maintain. But also feel free to opt out of anything that doesn't feel good. What's lovely is you are in your own living space, and so you get to make this practice your own. I'm kind of like a guide, but if you want to take a detour or hang out in a pose for a little bit longer, kind of check out the landscape a bit, that's also fine. So how I like to start my classes, if you can find a comfortable seat, and we'll just kind of get our senses in the space together. So if it feels okay, you can start to close your eyes and begin to root down through your sits bones as you reach up through the crown of the head. Broaden your collarbones as you roll your shoulder blades out and down. Then bring the tip of the tongue to the back of your front teeth as you release the jaw to create space between the top and bottom teeth. Then we'll all take an inhale through the nose. And then open your mouth and release an exhale. Inhale through your nose. And then open the mouth and release an exhale. And then last time, inhale through the nose. And then release an audible sigh as your exhale. And then if your eyes are closed, you can slowly start to open your eyes or just begin to lift your gaze. Right. So welcome back into the space. So today's theme is going off with kind of what makes yoga special and kind of what brings purpose to our yoga practice. And it's one of the three practices of transformation and growth. It's kind of like the thing that propels you forward. And the concept today, and if you were in my class on Tuesday, it's the same thing, it's Svadhyaya. And Svadhyaya translated means self-study. And that a big part of our yoga practice is for us to build the position of researcher and to be our own data collector. I'll read what my sutras teacher writes about it to kind of unpack Svadhyaya a bit. Sva means the self or to sweeten. Svadhyaya is the necessity to review and evaluate our progress through self-observation and self-analysis. We must regularly pay visits to ourselves, check in, and honestly assess whether or not we are truly bringing the teachings and the lessons of yoga home. It's the effort to gain a deeper understanding of our weaknesses and strengths and to address what the fire of practice has bubbled up to the surface for our review. Self-realization can only be attained through personal responsibility. It is the recognition that when there is conflict, we must first look to ourselves as the source. Through personal effort, we develop skillfulness to identify and neutralize and all of our psychological or physical weaknesses. We learn to utilize our strengths to the fullest and develop the aspects of our personality and character that are unpolished and weak. Svadhyaya empowers us to learn from ourselves and harness our potential to gain limitless understanding. So why I'm bringing that up today is that our whole a huge purpose of our yoga practice is for us to put ourselves in challenging situations, whether it's like strength building or being bored and kind of watching our internal reactions. Because what's showing up on your mat is often showing up off of your mat. I'll give a personal example and then we'll dive into practice is whenever I'm in yoga classes, I've gotten this feedback before and I felt it within myself, is I go beyond the teacher's instructions. Like I'm already on the next pose and kind of already know where they're going. And so there's a sense of impulsiveness that shows up on my mat where I'm already like 4 poses ahead without taking the time to slowly progress and trust that somebody else will guide me there. This also shows up in a grander context, right? Where sometimes maybe you identify with this, where you press the send button way too soon. Like even before you've edited or even understood, is this really what I want to say, right? That you're quick to jump the gun, right? And so my yoga practice has been showing me this over years, that my impulsivity or kind of push on the yoga mat shows up in all other aspects of my life. And right, I can even broaden that to understand, right, when others are impulsive, right, or when I teach yoga classes, when I see this too with other folks where they're quickly on the most extreme version of the pose and we're just kind of building the baseline. So I give you this example as a way of like, you know, inviting you and maybe kind of sweetening the deal a bit about why it's so purposeful to be on your yoga mat, and that you get to kind of develop this researcher mind to watch what patterns and habits you have, to empower you to take personal responsibility for your growth and transformation. Because as soon as we build awareness, right, that we have these habits or these patterns, awareness gives us choice. And that yoga is ultimately a path to freedom. Freedom from our habits, our reactions, our things that are keeping us stuck. But we first have to like kind of get to know what they are. So I'm going to invite everybody to find a comfortable seat. You too, Momo. And if you have already been sitting with crossed legs, just switch the cross of your legs. And then place your palms face down on your thighs. Then from here, I invite you to close your eyes as you once again press down through your sits bones and reach the crown of the head upward. And then just take a moment, right, to again start to build the researcher position, to just witness what it comes up for you as you sit here. Right. All of the points of contact your body is making with the ground, as well as the points of contact your body is making with the air around you. Again, kind of building this position of being the observer here. And then continue to keep your body in your awareness, but then start to shift your attention to noticing your breath. Noticing how your body receives each inhale, as well as noticing how your body releases each exhale. And without doing too much to manipulate the breath or change it, again, can you build this position of observing and just watch each inhale and each exhale. And then you might notice, right, as we start to build the observer, that the mind has a tendency to create stories or judgments. And can you kind of just remind the mind that you are just cultivating the act of studying, of watching and witnessing without having to do anything about it. And then when you're ready, you can start to bring your hands towards your heart and then bow your head towards your heart. And then take a moment or two to set an intention for your practice and for your self-study. It could be a word, phrase, or something meaningful to you that you can have as your anchor for your time on the mat. And then we'll all take a round of breath together to seal our intention. So inhale through the nose, and a big exhale through the nose. Then from here, release your hands, open your eyes. And so keep your hands on your knees, and then we'll inhale, slightly tuck the chin to reach the spine long, and then start to release your right ear towards your right shoulder, creating some tension on the left side of your neck. And then from here, you can decide whether this feels like enough, or you can start to press into the left hand to increase the contraction of the muscles, as well as increase the tension that's happening on the left side of the body. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale to reach the crown of the head up. And then exhale to switch sides. So releasing the left ear towards the left shoulder. And then you can decide here if you'd like to press into the right hand or just kind of leave it. Again, this is one of these perfect opportunities for you to do your own research about like what happens when you loosen the hand, what happens when you press. Kind of observing changes in the body if those are what are arising in this moment. Also noticing if there's like a reverberation that happens when you've created those changes. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale to reach the crown of the head up. And then exhale to release the chin down. And again, you can just kind of let the head hang or press into both palms in towards the knee to increase, again, the tension that's happening on the upper spine as you release down. And then inhale to reach the crown of the head up. And then exhale to release your hands. And then switch the cross of your legs. Then we'll inhale to reach the hands out and up. And so press down through your sit bones as you reach up through the fingertips. And then on your exhale, we'll slowly start to release the hands forward. And then walk the hands forward as much feels comfortable for you as you press the hips back. Right now, my back is feeling a bit more kind of sensitive. And so keeping my head lifted feels safe for me, but you get to decide how far you'd like to go. And then we'll inhale to reach the hands out and up. Exhale to release your hands down by your side. And then one last time, we'll switch the cross of our legs. And then this time, just walk your hands forward, and then we'll slowly release the head down. Press down through your sit bones as you reach your fingertips forward. And again, you can decide how long you'd like the spine or how high up the head is, especially going in accordance with what your body is kind of allowing today. I know for me, since I've had a back injury since the beginning of this, that this has been such a good place for me to study myself, as to watch how I take care of myself and how I push myself, or the reactions I have to having this kind of sensitive spot on my body, this healing part. And so using these places of tightness or restriction or limits as a thing to study rather than judge yourself for. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale to walk the hands back. And then from here, we'll come into a tabletop shape. So you can just roll forward, extend your feet back, and then have your hands more or less under your shoulders and knees under your hips. If wrists are feeling a bit restricted, just walk the hands forward to increase the angle so that there's not so much weight, or you're not forcing a 90 degree. And then from here, on your inhale, we'll release the belly down, roll the shoulder blades down the back, maybe look up towards the ceiling. And then on your exhale, slowly start to tuck the chin in towards the chest, reaching the lumbar spine up towards the ceiling. And so moving through these, following your own pacing. And again, now that we're starting to link breath with movement, this also gives you a nice place to like study the self, right? And so especially because we're moving through these two shapes, sometimes we have a preference for one shape over the other, or right, sometimes we like to push ourselves beyond in a shape, or sometimes we like to get lazy. And so kind of notice what your habitual reactions are, or what your habits are, or preferences or dislikes. These are all data points for you to watch and observe. And then when you're ready, on your next inhale, we'll slowly come back into a tabletop shape. And then from here, keep your hips over your knees, and then we'll walk our hands forward. So you can always bring the tops of your feet into the floor or tuck the toes. It's kind of your preference. But then we'll draw the hips back as you release the crown of the head forward. And what I like to do is have a prop underneath my head so that I have something to relax onto. But you can also keep the head lifted. But the main focus is pressing down through all 10 fingers and then rolling the outsides of the arm bones down towards the ground. So it's like you're like rolling the elbow pits up. And then there's a hollowing of the armpits as you draw the hips back, reaching the crown of the head forward. So there's this pushing and pulling that's happening in the spine as you release down into the shape. Pull in on the low belly as you continue to press the hips back. Breathing deeply here. Again, as you kind of continue the act of studying the self in this circumstance. And then when you're ready, slowly start to walk your hands back so that it's underneath your shoulders. And then from here, we'll walk our hands forward, a handprint forward, but then start to walk the right handprint even farther. And then release the left elbow back as you release the crown of the head back and stretch out through the right side of the body. So the arms are parallel to each other, but the left forearm is a handprint back and pressing down so that the elbow can bend. Releasing back into your breath here. And then when you're ready on your next inhale, we'll look up between the hands and then walk your left hand back, right hand back, left hand forward, and then release the right forearm down. Start to stretch the hips back as you release the crown of the head or the forehead down to the floor. Releasing back, and then especially right, kind of noticing all of the things that you can be curious about, right? That now there's this intense tension on the left side of the body. And so you can watch, right, what's the sensations that are arising in the body as well as what's happening to the breath as you pay particular focus to this side of your body. All right. And then when you're ready, start to walk your left hand back. And then if you have a prop, just start to move it off to the side. And then from here, walk both of your hands, again, so that they're kind of more or less underneath your shoulders. And then walk them a handprint forward. Then from here, again, there's going to be, I'm just turning so you can see, there's going to be a really like exaggerated, like whoosh, rolling the arms forward so that the eyes of the elbows point forward. But then there's also like a little, like, it's not to the point where I'm pressing the elbows forward, right? That there's like a slight bend. They're just rolling so that they point forward. But there's not this overextension. Okay. Then from here, roll forward so that you're coming into a modified plank on your knees. And you can always decide to flip the toes, come into a full plank, or stay planted on the knees, which I'm going to. And then on your exhale, we're going to bend the elbows straight back. Sometimes they have a tendency to go out. We want to bend them straight back and slowly resist gravity, release all the way down to the floor. Keep the hands right underneath the shoulders. And then on your next inhale, start to press into the fingertips. Keep the elbows right by the ribs, and then we'll press up either into a modified plank or a full plank. Pressing between the space between your shoulder blades. And then exhale once again, lower very slowly, resisting gravity all the way down to your mat. And then this time, keep your hands underneath your shoulders. Press into all, so you're gonna press into the tops of your feet, knees and hips, and then zip your legs up together. Then your inhale is gonna feel as if the crown of the head is reaching forward, and then slowly start to lift the head and heart off of the floor. Roll your shoulder blades down the back to keep your elbows right by your ribs as you press into the low belly and continue to reach the crown of the head forward. Continue to breathe here. Right, and even engage the glutes here as best you can. And then on your exhale, releasing down. And when you're ready on your next inhale, once again, you can press up into plank or press up into this modified plank. Continue to press between the space between your shoulders. And then exhale, last time, I promise, lower all the way down to your mat. And then from here, extend your arms behind you with your fingertips pointed away, palms down. Now press into the tops of your feet, knees and hips. And then on your inhale, continue to feel as if the crown of the head is reaching forward by tucking the chin slightly in. Slowly start to lift the head and heart off of the floor. As you press into the hands, pull in on the low belly, and then engage the glutes as well as the outer hips. We'll take 3 rounds of breath here. And then on your exhale, slowly start to release everything down to the mat. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. And then inhale to press up, plank or modified plank. And then exhale, draw your hips back over your heels. And you can either have your knees together or knees wide. As you sit back into a child's pose, you can always bring a blanket or bath towel between your hips and your ankles to prioritize the hips going back and grounding, and then reach your hands forward, and then maybe you bring a prop or a book or something underneath the head. As you slowly release the body into this shape, and kind of notice what happens right after those more challenging, active shapes. Give yourself this moment to observe how the body recalibrates and resets. As you continue to hold this shape of more quiet and stillness, you get to watch and learn how the body re-regulates and comes back to homeostasis. Right, studying your innate capacity to come back into balance. And then when you're ready, walk your hands back. And then from here, we'll slowly start to kind of release the hips back, or coming back into a tabletop. And then once again, walk your hands forward. And so here you get two options. So you can either press back into that shape that we did before called puppy's pose, or you keep your hips more or less over your knees and you stretch the arms forward, reaching the head forward and then maybe down. Or if it's in your practice, you can tuck the toes underneath, and then we'll inhale to lift the knees off the floor and then extend the hips back, coming in to find a downward facing dog. And again, if you're doing the downward facing dog, the arms are doing the same thing that they did before, where they are rotating out. The elbows, the pit of the elbows won't go as far, but it's just that activation that's happening so that there's contraction happening around the shoulder girdle. And then again, feeling that energy pulling in on the low belly as you reach up through the hips and reach the crown of the head downward. And then breathe here. And if you're in the puppy's pose, you can do the same thing where you maybe start to bring more activation here, pressing into the fingertips, rolling the outer arm bones down, and then doing the work to roll the shoulder blades down towards the hips. So it's kind of confusing where they're going down the back but up towards the hips and reaching the crown of the head forward. And then the outer hips are pulling back. Breathing here. And then when you're ready, slowly bringing your hands, if you're in downward facing dog, either walk your hands back or your feet forward to come to find a forward fold. If you're in a puppy's pose position, you just walk your hands back and then slowly just kind of start to bend your knees, lift your hips. You can use a chair or a table or a couch to kind of help you come into a forward fold shape. And then grab opposite elbows, release the crown of the head down. And then from here, we'll just do work on the legs. So press down through the balls of the feet and then the outer corners. So the outside edges of the feet are really strong. And then imagine you're pulling, or my Iyengar teacher says it's like you're cutting the back of the heel creases back, or the ankle creases back. And then feel from the front of the legs that there's this upward energy happening where there's a pulling and an engagement of the quads. And that the outside of the hip from the outside of the knee pulling up. And then from the back of the legs, it's from like the top of the hamstrings all the way down to the heels is pushing down to the ground. And then you can decide here whether to just grab opposite elbows, release your hands down to a prop, a table. But being particular about how strong your legs are. Kind of in noticing what happens once you start to engage them. In comparison, you can kind of switch from like releasing and then engagement. Release and engage. Right? So this is just something for you to like be curious about and focus. And then when you're ready, we'll bring the hands towards the top of the thighs. And then inhale, press into the top of the thighs as you reach the crown of the head forward. And then slowly continue to lift to come into a full standing shape. And then I'm gonna try to move my camera so you can get all of my body. I'm very tall and my apartment is very small, so I'm doing my best. But come to find a standing shape. Let's see if this works. Let's see how my coffee table. Okay. So come to find a standing shape. Root down through your feet. And you can either have your feet maybe hips width distance apart or together. And maybe you do the research here. You practice stepping 1 foot away, you practice putting it together. Let's all do this. Where you move from hips width distance to together, hips width distance to together. Kind of like a funny dance move where we're like side stepping. But just playing with, right, what happens when you kind of move your weight with your feet together and apart. And then you can decide, right, which helps you feel more stable or which feels like it would contribute to your practice the most, whether keeping your feet together or feet slightly apart. Then from here, root down through the big toe mound, and then continue to press through the outer heel as well as the outside of the foot. Cut the front of the ankles back as you engage the front of the legs up towards the pelvis. So it's like there's this like upward energy that's happening. And that the quads are engaging so much so that it feels like the kneecaps are lifting. And that from the outside of the knees up to the hips, there's like this pulling. And then from the butt, right, there's this downward pull. And not so much so that we over tuck the tail, but like it's engaged enough that you feel like there's something happening where the legs are pulling so much into the bone, or the muscles are pulling into the bone. Then from here, pull in on the low belly, reach up through the crown of the head, and then roll the shoulders down the back, reaching out through the fingertips. And then we'll do this a couple of times. Inhale to roll the shoulders up and back. And last time, up and back. Then when you're ready, we'll root down through the feet, and then this time, interlace the hands. And I like to bring my thumb and my pinky fingers together. You don't have to. It's kind of like a stylistic choice. I can't tell you like the science behind why to do it. I just really like doing it. And that's what's kind of with yoga practice is you get to make it yours. So we'll interlace our fingers, and whether you bring your thumbs and pointer or pinky fingers together is your choice. But then we'll inhale to reach the hands forward. And so press into the palms, and then keep the pinky side as well as the thumb side both pushing. And then reach down through the feet as you reach the hands up. And again, right, it just depends on kind of if your arms are used to doing this or if this feels kind of foreign. Equally press down through the feet as you push up through the hands. right? And kind of notice which side of the hands has a tendency to go up. My pinky side is going up here, so I have to intentionally move the thumb side up. And then press up through the hands and imagine, right, that everything is pulling in towards the body as well as reaching far away. And breathe in here. And then we'll inhale here. And then keep pressing out through the hands until they come unlaced. Reach out through the fingertips and then slowly release them down by your sides. And then shake it out. All right. So press down through the feet, reach out through the crown of the head, and then start to interlace your fingers the least natural way. So it'll feel a little weird, like it'll just feel awkward. And so that's when you know you're doing it right. And then again, you can decide if you'd like to close the loop with bringing your thumb and your pinky finger together, or if you just want to have them hanging. And then we'll inhale to reach them forward. Exhale here. And then inhale to reach them up towards the ceiling. And right, you can even bring the shoulders up towards the ears here to kind of increase the length of the body. And imagine, right, as you press down through the feet and reach up through the fingertips, right, that there's space that's happening with the muscles that are underneath the rib basket. Right, you're just creating lots and lots of space for your body. And then notice kind of what's happening as you create space in the torso, kind of what happens with your breath here. And we'll inhale here. And then continue to press out through your palms as you press out so much that they become undone. And then release your hands down by your side. And then shake it out. And shaking out your feet. All right. So now we're going to work with transitioning from standing shapes. So come to the front of your mat. And oftentimes in yoga, if you're like a well-seasoned practitioner, you've developed habits, right? And what's great, if you're brand new to yoga, you'll be great at this. It's the ones that already have habits will have difficulties doing this, right? But again, it's just more data for you. There's nothing right or wrong. It's stuff for you to be curious about and work with. And so I'll have you watch me first. And so what we're going to start doing is we're going to move from standing into warrior two shape and then step back. And we'll first just do it with the left leg standing back. So come to stand at the front of your mat. And again, you can have feet wide apart or together. Bring your hands together or your hands on your hips, kind of whatever feels better for you, or have them out wide. And then we'll inhale here and then exhale to step your left foot back. Bend your front knee, come to find a more or less warrior two position. And then on your next inhale, slowly starting to step the left foot back, right? So it might take a little bit to step the foot back. Inhale here, and then exhale, left foot back. Inhale to step back to center. Exhale, left foot back. And so kind of moving through these, you can go very slowly if you like, or you can practice just stepping the foot back quickly. You might even find you want to bring the left knee in towards the chest as you start to step back. But kind of notice how you are transitioning between these shapes, right? And usually it's like a one and done, but now we're kind of moving. And so kind of notice what's happening for you here. And then eventually coming to find a standing Tadasana pose. And then we'll switch sides. So I'm going to switch my side of my mat so you can see me. But we'll inhale into a Tadasana shape, standing shape, and then exhale to step back, the right foot, warrior two. Inhale to step forward. Exhale to step back. Inhale forward. Exhale back. And again, you can play around. Oh, do I want to bring my knee in or not? Kind of making a different experience of walking into warrior two
And then we'll do it one more time. Inhale, and then exhale to bring the leg down. Okay. So now we're going to inhale here in Tadasana, and then either bring the knee up or just keep it by the right foot. We'll step the left foot back, bend the right knee, and then feel as if the inside of the right leg, the right thigh, is pulling out towards the knee as the outside of the thigh from the knee to the hip is pulling back. And then you can decide if you'd like to keep your hands by your hips as you, or reach your hands out and up to find your warrior two position. What's really important is that our feet are really rooted, and play around, right? What happens when you start to put more effort into the outside of the left foot? And kind of notice, again, warrior two, especially if you're a seasoned practitioner, is something that we do kind of automatically. And so maybe doing something different with this warrior two, or being creative with what's happening with the arms, right? Sometimes we have the arms out like this, but you can say, what happens if I reach this one up, right? Or keep my hands down on my hips, or press my left hip back and down, right? What's happening? So making this kind of warrior two, not your like, okay, let me spout out an answer, right? This is what warrior two looks like, and making it more of your like laboratory of what does warrior two feel like, and how can I make warrior two mine, or interesting, or different, new, something to observe. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale to straighten the right leg. And then maybe walk your left foot forward if you step really far back like I did. And then we'll start to hop the left foot forward, coming into your Tadasana shape. We'll inhale here. And then start to step the right foot back. Warrior two legs. Then start to bend the left knee. Again, feel as if the inside of the left thigh is pulling away as the outside is pulling in towards your body. And then you can decide what you'd like to do with the hands, right? You can have them down on your hips. You can have them out to the side. Again, making this warrior two yours, where you get to experiment, like what does it feel like to have different arms? I'm kind of doing like a Vogue. Maybe even playing around with moving the legs. Right? To make these shapes more exploratory rather than automatic. What can you observe in your warrior two? Cultivating an attitude of curiosity in all of the shapes, in every moment and every breath. And then when you're ready, on your next inhale, we'll start to straighten the left leg. And then turn both toes over to the long edge of your mat. And then from here, you get to decide. You can toe heel your feet together, or you bring your fingers together. And this is kind of like an Iyengar transition. And then you exhale and hop the feet together. And so again, you can decide, no, I just want to toe heel my feet together. Again, choosing a transition that feels good for you, or you can hop. Then from here, we'll come back into Tadasana shape now in the middle of your mat, and then turn towards the front edge of your mat. Root down through your feet, and then inhale to reach your arms out and up. And then on your exhale, hinge at your hips, lead with your heart, and circle your arms wide. Again, keeping your spine really long. And then bring your hands towards the shins without forward folding too much, right? So that we still want this really long spine.
especially if we've been sitting on the couch. Going like this kind of keeps the back in the position it was in rather than something different. And then from here, we'll bend the knees to bring the hands on the floor and then come into a tabletop shape. Inhale here. And then exhale, walk the hands forward, and you can either come into a downward facing dog or a puppy's pose. Once again. Giving yourself a moment or two to kind of reset and resettle and reground. Giving yourself maybe 3 rounds of breath here. And then if you're in downward facing dog, release the knees down to the floor. If you're in puppy's pose, walk the hands back. And then we'll sit back on our feet, move the hips over to the side, and then extend the legs forward. I'm gonna move my computer again. And then from here, so bend the knees and place the feet flat on the floor. And then bring the hands underneath the thighs. And then slowly start to roll onto the back. Hugging the knees in towards the chest, maybe rocking side to side. And then from here, release your feet down. Keep your palms face down by your hips. And then on your inhale, press down into your feet. And then feel as if the tail is tucking away from you and then pulling your vertebrae down. So it's like pulling away from you. And then with this pulling sensation, you lift the hips up. Press the hands still on the ground. Reach the hip flexors up. But keep the rib cage pulled in. Sometimes we have a tendency to like flare up through the ribs. You want to keep it in and engaged. And then exhale to release the hips. So this next one, we're going to do 2 more. You can continue to just lift the hips up. The next one is kind of for the pelvis. You bring the right foot on top of the left thigh. And then you inhale to lift the hips up again. Maybe hold for a breath or 2. And then when you're done, you're done. Release your hips down. Again, you can always just lift your hips as we go through this. And then either switch sides or just get ready to lift your hips into bridge. And so we'll inhale to lift. Exhale to hold. And then continue to breathe here. And then on your next exhale, or when you're ready, slowly lower your hips. Or release your feet down. Then from here, give yourself a moment or 2 to neutralize the spine, kind of soften the back body into the floor. And then you'll hook your right foot behind the left ankle and then release the right knee down. So I'm going to do this opposite so you can see me. Down to the floor. You might even find that you can walk your right foot in as you release your left knee out to the side, kind of adding some tension to the front of the left or right hip flexor, excuse me, and then releasing down. Letting your breath be soft here and letting your mind still be curious about all of the data points that occur even as you hold this more quiet shape. That there's still so many things going on for you to observe and watch and witness. And when you're ready, slowly start to bring your right knee up.
Bring your right foot back to the floor. Give yourself a moment or two in neutral to kind of resettle. And then when you're ready, we'll switch sides. So hook your left ankle behind your right, and then release the left knee down towards the floor to release into this side. Again, using these poses not just as a workout or a stretch, but using them as a place for you to observe, to witness, and to study how these shapes stir things up in you, but doing it in a really safe way on your mat. Where you get to be the one that cares the most. And then when you're ready, slowly bring your left, unhook your left ankle and draw your left knee up towards the sky and bring your left foot back to plant on the floor. And then for the next minute or so, kind of let your body move in whatever way feels kind of intuitive. Indulging for the next minute, letting your body be your guide for any last thing that you may need before we all transition into our final shape. And then slowly begin to extend your legs, release your arms down by your side, using whatever props or supports or layers that you may need to help support yourself in this or in our final shape. As you bring the body to stillness, or as close to stillness as you can. As we all rest together in the final moments of class in silence.
Begin to deepen your breath. But I invite you to stay in your final shape as I read the words from the beginning of class. Self-realization can only be attained through personal responsibility. It is the recognition that when there is a conflict, we must first look to ourselves as the source. Through personal effort, we develop skillfulness to identify and neutralize any and all of our psychological or physical weaknesses. We learn to utilize our strengths to the fullest and develop the aspects of our personality and character that are unpolished and weak. Svadhyaya empowers us to learn from ourselves and harness our potential to gain limitless understanding. From here, once again, you can consciously start to breathe a little fuller, and then eventually invite movement in your body to help you transition to bring your senses back in the room. And then following your own trajectory, eventually using your movement and your breath to help you come to find a comfortable seat, whatever that means to you. And then I invite you here to either bring palms face down on your thighs or your palms together in front of your heart, as I invite you to bow towards the wisdom that resides within you. To acknowledge that yoga is not a self-improvement project, but in fact a self-realization project. And that one of the skills acquired in yoga is this attitude of curiosity and this commitment to self-study. And so thank you so much for engaging in this practice with me, and to be your own student of your experience, to develop your own expertise and personal responsibility for your growth and transformation. A deep bow of gratitude to every single one of you. Thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Thursday in my living room. I hope to see you all soon. We offer a class every day except for Monday and the weekends. And so I hope to see you again in my class or in one of our other ones.